Well, hello friends, and welcome to part 2 of the restoration of this Ropp Cherrywood. And we are going to begin by focusing in on the stummel, so we'll put the stem aside for now. And since we can, we're going to take away the shank. We'll worry about that a bit later. And for now, we're just going to focus on cleaning the inside of the stummel. And I'm going to do that by reaming, and I'm going to begin with the smallest of these Castleford reamers, which sort of begins to fit in there. Wanted to take a look inside here and just see if, yeah, it's actually quite full of cake. Curious. Can't really see. You know, actually, that is, wow. That is really caked up, so you cannot, the hole where the shank goes is actually occluded with cake. So this has not been cleaned and probably not been serviceable for a very long time. Yeah, there's a layer of cake that's actually covering that hole. That's amazing. Okay, well, let's begin to ream it. My apologies, but while the furnace was running, I went ahead and started to ream this. And I discovered pretty quickly, and actually I had read this in various places, so it's not really a surprise, this bottoms out much above where I need it to go. So, you know, we're only getting, the reaming part is actually stopping just at about where this hole starts. And that's because it turns out the chamber itself, and it's going to be very difficult for me to catch this for you, but the chamber itself is conical. I don't know why I can't get the, there we go. So, I don't know if you're going to be able to see that, but the bottom of the chamber comes not to a point, but to a, it narrows down as the chamber comes down. Also, looking at this side is a bit deceptive because we've got this angled cut here. We're pretty close to the bottom, but it has bottomed out a bit, and there is still some cake in there that I've been attempting to remove with the with this reaming knife that I have here, and I think I've done a fairly good job of that. And if I bring the light in, you can actually start to see light coming through the hole there. So I've got a little bit more work to do, and I think the first thing we're going to have to do is get out the shank reamers to actually ream this opening, and just see if we can do a little bit of hand shaping in here with some sandpaper. So I'll get those items and I'll bring you back in just a moment. Okay, so we're going to begin with these shank reamers, and I'm actually going to put the flashlight in there so I can see what I'm doing. I know you're not going to be able to see very much of this. You can see the light is coming through there. I want to be able to see the opening and how much I've got to work with as I work the reamers down in there. And yeah, that's giving away really easily. You can see that's opened up a great deal already. These reamers are just various sized drill bits that are mounted in a handle. You've probably seen them in some of my previous videos. Obviously we're not reaming the shank right now, we're just trying to deal with this tiny opening here. And let's see what, yeah, so that was all stuck in that juncture. Alright, so it's looking good, but we still got some things I'd like to smooth out down there a bit. So I'm going to see, the problem is it's a small bowl, so even, that's about, I can't get my finger all the way to the bottom of that. So to actually sand that bottom, I'm going to need something that I can put down there that holds sandpaper. Let me think. I'll be back. Alright, so necessity being the mother of invention and whatnot, I took this dowel, which I've used for hundreds of different things, and I actually rounded over the bottom here to give it a profile that pretty closely matches the profile that we're shooting for here. It sinks in there basically about as far as we want it to. And now what I'm hoping I'm going to be able to do is take a piece of this sandpaper and wrap it in a way that will allow it to both work on the sides and on the bottom. I don't know how successful this will be, but we shall see. And then we'll just jam it in there, and I'm going to do that off camera because I don't want to give anybody an epileptic fit from watching the up-close oscillating movement. Okay, so I've managed to really destroy a piece of sandpaper, but let's see what that's done in the bowl. Ah, not bad actually. Let me knock out the... Yeah, it's actually looking a whole lot better. Again, I'm not sure what you will be able to see, but we're looking more like a tobacco chamber now. And if I stuff a pipe cleaner in there, you can easily see the pipe cleaner sticking out of the bottom, or sticking in the bottom. So yeah, I'm gonna probably be happy with that. I may do that one more time just to smooth things out, but it's actually feeling pretty smooth, and I think we've gotten as much cake out of there as we can. Again, it is a small bowl, and it is definitely conically shaped at the bottom, so there's not a lot more that we can do, but you can see we are clear right to the bottom where the air hole is. So let's set this aside for the time being and turn to the shank. Now the shank is a bit of a problem because we have this cork liner, and I'm going to deal with the cork liner in the next video, so I don't want to do anything specific with that right now, but I do want to clean at least this end and the internal of the shank. And to do that, I am going to start. It doesn't appear like it needs to be reamed. Actually, it's going to be almost impossible to show this to you because these things never... Oh, jeez. Oh, there we go. You can kind of see. It's quite open. So, my apologies for shining a light in your eyes, and for the furnace, I will bring you back once I've cleaned this with some alcohol and pipe cleaners. Alright, so we've been through several pipe cleaners and whatnot, and I'm going to move the waste away because you don't need to be looking at that. But you can see there was a fair amount of cake. Not actually terrible. I thought it was much worse because I was not realizing just how small the bowl was. This actually worked really well to get that bottom cleaned out, at least as far as we're going to get it cleaned out. And you know, it now looks like you would expect a tobacco chamber to look. And the hole actually goes all the way through, and there's no occlusion in the opening. So we're in good shape there. The stem, I cleaned it. Actually, this cork material in the end here is very, very fragile. Just passing the pipe cleaner through it started to break it up. You can see that it's really rather broken up now. But I ran pipe cleaners and alcohol through this until they came out clean. So the inside is very clean. And then I used some alcohol on a gauze pad to clean off the threads here. And we're actually in very good shape now. We've got the inside of the pipe pretty much clean. And I will, of course, retort this when it's all done. But right now I'm just focusing on the large-scale cleaning, if you will. Alright, so the next thing to do then is really to focus on the outside of the pipe. And to do that, I'm going to use, and I'm a little, I'll be honest with you, I'm a little reluctant to do what I'm about to do, but I don't know what else to do. I want to clean this. I want to refinish it. I don't want to stain it because I don't believe it is stained. But there's a lot of dirt on it, and it's in very good shape in terms of the bark is intact and everything. So I want to be careful with it. I think I'm going to use Murphy's oil soap. That has not let me down in the past. It does a really good job, and I haven't seen it cause any damage. So I'm going to take a risk with this, and I'm going to go ahead and put the oil soap on it. So for the Murphy's oil soap, we're going to actually take advantage of using one of our pipe stands here, and we're going to treat these two parts separately. So I will be able to put that there. And I will begin by applying the soap to the stummel. And you've probably seen me do this before. I'm just going to liberally apply, in shot, I'm going to liberally apply the oil soap to the exterior of the pipe, not put any in the interior because I don't want to smoke it. And I'm now realizing that taking the stem off at that point was a mistake because I would like to have a handle. So I will put the stem back on. And if you use this stuff, you really do want to apply it quite liberally. It's very thick, but it dries quickly, and once it's dry, it doesn't really work very well. So to get it to really eat away at the dirt, you want it to be kind of globbed on there, within reason. All things within reason, of course. And I'm getting dangerously close to putting it inside the pipe, but there's a bit of a bevel there, and there's some buildup on it that I want to make sure I get. But that looks pretty good. So what I will do now is, theoretically, place this down and then remove the stem. Hey, how about that? It worked. And now I have a handle on the stem that I can use. And I'll just do the same. Just liberally apply this to the exterior. Now I usually let this soak in for about an hour. But on this, like I said, I'm a little concerned about the effects this might have on the cherry, so an hour might be a little bit too much time. So I'll probably leave it for about 20 minutes, and then I will come back to it after that and show you how I remove it. So while we're waiting that 20 minutes or so, we should turn our attention to the stem. And the stem is in, as I mentioned in the first video, very good shape. So we do have this stuff, and I am now absolutely certain that this is cork. I've had several folks contact me, and I will talk more about that in the next video. But even, being able to get a close-up look at this, it is cork. So that's good, because now we know that it's a gasket material and we can easily replace it. And to remove that, I'm hoping just simply scraping it off will be sufficient. Might need to use a bit of maybe a bit of alcohol and some paper toweling as well. So it was never glued onto the stem, so it should come off pretty easily. It doesn't. Okay, well, I'll keep working on this. Now the nice thing about this, it's a bit of a crude way to fit a stem, because you're taking advantage of the... Alright, so while the furnace was running, I apologize, but I decided to finish removing that cork, and all it took was a paper towel and some alcohol and a little bit of elbow grease rubbing it, and it all came off quite nicely. So I was saying that that's a crude way to fit a stem, because obviously it's relying upon the flexibility of the cork to grip the stem and hold it in place, whereas on most briar pipes you rely upon the fit of the tenon to the stem. But it works, and it's similar in concept to the way that a calabash gourd is the calabash cap is held into the gourd. So I'm sure that it will work just fine. So we have a fair amount of oxidation on this stem, and I am going to go ahead and sand this. I will not bore you with the sanding. I'll start at 220 grit and work my way up to 1000. And once that's done, we should be able to remove the Murphy's oil soap. So I'll see you after the sanding. So just a quick little trick that I've been using. This stem has now been sanded to just 220 grit. So I sanded it all over. You know, really took a layer of ebonite off, and then I took it over to the buffer and I buffed it with the Triple E compound, so the coarsest grit. And you can see that there's actually still, I mean, some of this is buffing compound, but there's still quite a bit of oxidation on the stem. And it's hard to detect that when you're just sanding it. So rather than sand through all the grits and then find it when you go and buff it, it's easier to sand at the lowest grit, buff it, and then resand at the lowest grit until the oxidation is gone. And then of course you go through the grits until you're reaching the appropriate level of shine that you want. So just thought you'd be interested in seeing that. Even though that had been thoroughly sanded, it still needs quite a bit more work. So after 3 different attempts at sanding this at 220 to get rid of the oxidation, I realized that it was a lot tougher than I thought. So what I've done here is I've soaked it down with mineral oil, and I've actually done a 220 grit sanding with the mineral oil as a lubricant, and we're just going to let that soak in overnight. That doesn't really do very much in terms of removing oxidation, but it does seem to make the spots that are oxidized a lot more apparent and a bit easier to remove. And I've done this on a number of stems. So I'm just going to let that go overnight, and we'll come back to this in the next video. So for the remainder of this video, we're going to be dealing with these guys who have now been sitting here for about a half an hour. And I'm going to be cleaning these off with just a simple paper towel and some water, and taking advantage of the fact that there is plenty of oil soap on the part to help with the cleaning. So the way I do this is I just add enough water to the paper towel to make it very damp, and then we just wipe it off. And you can see it's quite effective at removing dirt. Since I don't actually have to talk while I'm removing the dirt, I'm going to just let the furnace provide some background noise and continue to work on this. I hope you don't mind that. Maybe I'll put some music in over this part so that you don't have to listen to the furnace. Okay, so you can see that does remove quite a bit of junk. And now I'll use a clean towel and just repeat the process to make sure that I'm getting it as clean as possible. I'm using minimal scrubbing. I don't want to harm that surface at all because I don't know how thick the bark is, and I certainly don't want the bark to come off. I think that looks pretty good. So very nice. I'm going to set this aside and allow it to dry. And now we will work on the stummel. And at this point, I don't really mind if I touch it because it's done its work, so I don't need to have a handle necessarily. The soap has done its work, I guess is what I mean. And away we go. You can see just how much buildup is coming off of that, but it's not harming the original finish, which is exactly what I had hoped. And it appears that there's some sort of a shellac or varnish on this. I'm not sure which, but it's definitely not just a simple wax finish. Probably not shellac, because shellac's not that durable. It's probably some sort of a varnish. And I'm going to work on that rim, build it up. A lot of that might be charring around the inner rim there. I'm pretty certain that is charring. But we can get the outer rim clean. And yeah, it's actually looking quite nice. So we'll again get a clean paper towel and repeat the process. Let's get this out of the way. You see that bark is just really beautiful. I mean, it's not a traditional grain pattern, but it's such a neat effect. And the furnace is done. I hope you don't mind the noise during this, but as you can imagine, it's no fun waiting for that to finish up when you're in the middle of something. And I think I'm going to say that is done. So, a few more wipes here on the bottom. So the bottom cleaned up very well. If you remember, there were a few specks on the bottom of something or the other, and they seem to be gone. Now there does appear to be a bit of a finish on that's maybe half there, half not there. That's okay. We'll deal with that when we apply the wax finish. Here's another. I'm gonna have to get in there and see what that little white speck is. I'll put on my magnifying visor and see if that's part of the wood or if it's something stuck on the surface before I go gouging at it. But otherwise, this looks very, very good. Top cleaned up nicely. So we've got the inside of this cleaned, and the inside and outside cleaned. We've got the inside and outside of this guy cleaned. We need to work on the cork, and we need to complete our stem, complete the cleaning of our stem, and then we'll put it all together, run a retort through it, and she will be ready to smoke. So I'm going to tie this up in the next video, which will be part 3. I thank you for watching this series. I hope you've enjoyed it. And if you do enjoy it, I hope you'll consider subscribing to the channel if you're not already subscribed. This way you'll get updates as I start new projects or as I continue old projects. And of course, as always, your likes, your comments, your questions, your advice are very much appreciated. So please feel free to get in touch with any of those. And until the next installment, I will look forward to talking to you all again very soon. Goodbye now.